I'm Tom Layson, and this is a Northwest Now Digital Extra. 80 years ago, in February of 1942, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066. The order started what would become one of the most infamous chapters in American history, when 120,000 people of Japanese ancestry, 2/3 of them U.S. citizens, were forced to give up everything and move into detention camps for the duration of the war. In western Washington, shopkeepers, farmers, educators, professionals, husbands, wives, and children were all rounded up on short notice, forced to give up property, and shipped off first to Camp Harmony at the Puyallup Fairgrounds and then the detention camps, with the majority winding up in remote areas of California. On Bainbridge Island, a large memorial and interpretive center stands on the path leading to Eagle Harbor, where 276 people walked aboard the ferry to leave the island. But with the passage of time, those who lived the experience are slowly fading away, which, as Northwest Now contributor Michael Driver shows us, is why it's up to a new generation to help us remember.
I've been really thinking about what is it, why this history? Why do I hold on to it so tightly? And I think it's because it won't quite let me go. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor in 1941 in December, everything changed, right? The United States was now at war with Japan, and in February 1942, President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, and that authorized the removal of Japanese Americans from the West Coast. Certainly the forced removal, I want to be clear, right? Not an evacuation, as it was called. Tule Lake is where my family was. It was a terrible time for them, for sure. My family was shocked and upset. This is an unpublished book that my dad wrote about his time being incarcerated. Some of the things that stand out are those kinds of moments of resilience and creativity that my grandparents had. Certainly another moment that I remember very strongly is the moment where my dad and my uncle were burning their family pictures, things with Japanese writing on them. It's a terrible thing, right, to have to burn your own family history. And I think one of the things that sustained them and kept them, though, was that they were and remain a very close-knit family. One of the few pictures I have of my grandparents and all of their kids. My dad ended up having 6 siblings. My grandmother was pregnant, actually, when they were evicted, and so she gave birth to my youngest aunt in camp. This is an actual map of the camp itself. My family was in Barrack 45. It was incredibly hot. Tar paper barracks made it for a really miserable experience. This is a picture of my dad, Taku. He's the young boy on the right here. For years, I had known my dad was in camp, but I had never seen a picture of him in camp before this. Executive Order 9066 is part of what happens when we allow xenophobia and wartime hysteria and a lack of political vision and a lack of long-term vision to vilify a whole group. I love this picture partly because it really shows the kind of dad that he was. He was a really affectionate dad. It is something that I want people to think about in terms of the long-term legacy. Here we are 80 years later, right? And this is still something that my family is dealing with in certain ways, that my community is still dealing with. We're trying, a lot of us, to extend the lessons of that history into the present because it was so terribly traumatizing. This history of Japanese Americans has lots of roots and branches into other parts of American history. And if we're not careful, we can really let that go or bury it or erase it without having learned the lessons that that history has to teach us. I don't want us to forget just how dehumanizing such an order can be for so many people and their kids and their kids' kids for generations to come.
To see our full discussion about the 80th anniversary of the Japanese Exclusion Order, be sure to look on the Northwest Now digital section at kbtc.org. Northwest Now airs Friday nights at 7:30 right here on KBTC, and be sure to look for more digital stories like this one by following us on Facebook and Twitter at Northwest Now.